Nice to have that's a luxury for the teens. Check it out.
I think that's Ken.
But again, see if you're interested.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Can I please get a roll call?
Jackson, yeah. Don Woodward. Katie Newton.
I'm here.
Greg Sherwood. Kim McCormick.
Here.
Ray Whitworth. Lisa Kowalski.
Here.
And Shauna Manthorn and Paula Kaner.
Charlotte Manthor will be arriving late, and Paula Kane is excused. If we could all stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Heard a lot of little bit loud voices. I think they're here for our student, staff, and family share.
Or to whip like dodgeballs at people. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we've got two student staff and family share presentations tonight. We're going to start with Atkinson Academy.
Right.
I'm going to defer to Principal Harris. He'll get us rolling, and then we're going to be talking with some kids this evening.
Well, thank you and welcome. We're not going to talk dodgeball. I didn't bring any dodgeballs tonight, but just to gloat, we did win. And we have a couple players right behind me too. So a lot of different talents that we have. So tonight we have our Bear Robotics with their coaches, Ms. Capel and Ms. Dulon, who are here to kind of support that. And we started our robotics and our Lego thing, thank you to Kim Capel, last year. And it's just been going so well. And the involvement that we have with our students, with some groups coming before school and some groups coming after school, has just been stellar. And I love seeing the groups coming in, and it's exciting, and I'm excited to see what they have to show for us. So with that, they're going to introduce themselves, and they have a script that they're going to walk through and showcase all they know. So Bear Robotics, it's yours.
Come on up, guys.
Okay, guys ready? 3, 2, 1.
We're the Atkinson Bears.
We'd like to introduce ourselves and then tell you a little about our season so far.
Allow me to start the introductions. I'm Mateo.
I'm George.
I'm George too.
Having two Georges sometimes gets confusing.
So I go by Gio.
I'm Evan.
I'm William.
We started the season with older Mindstorm NXT models.
Then we earned a grant from the New Hampshire Department of Education.
We used that to get new Spike Prime robot kits. As you can see, there is a big difference between these two robot types.
The Mindstorms can't even be coded on Chromebooks.
With the spikes, we can complete the robot missions more efficiently and earn more points.
This will help us win, or at least place higher than we did last time.
This season, we have worked on our cooperative skills by building different parts of the robot in pairs and then putting the pieces together into one full robot.
We are doing the first LEGO Challenge competitions. We did one competition in November and still have the Spring Scramble in May to go. Our theme this season is Submerged.
This means that all the missions in the robot game are ocean themed.
For example, we have to push coral across the map.
It also had to knock a squid down into a landing zone.
Other missions were to push a boat across the mat and to release a shark by pushing a lever.
Our robot couldn't do this on its own. We had to code it to do this.
We used block coding in the Spike program to tell the robot how it should behave.
We also had to connect attachments to the robot to help it accomplish missions.
One of these attachments was a dozer blade and another was an arm.
The spikes make it easier to access different building instructions and coding tutorials.
At the competition in November, not all of our missions worked the way we planned.
We tried our best though and learned from our mistakes.
The competition was not what we expected, but now we know a lot more for the next time, including how much we will get to use the practice map.
However, we adapted on the fly by putting the robot in a different starting position and trying a different mission before the timer ran out.
Another thing we improved at is problem solving when we ran into issues with our robot or at the competition. We also got better at our presentation skills by speaking in front of groups at the competition.
We've learned a lot this season and having lots of fun.
Thank you.
It's like a thing of choreography right there.
I loved it. Y'all great.
First of all, you guys are absolutely awesome. Seriously, what grade did you say you're in?
Fourth and fifth
Fourth and fifth. And you were using Chromebooks to program your robot.
Yes. Using the Lego Spike app.
By using that one.
This.
How did you learn how to use the Chromebooks in this application?
Well,
Mrs. Capel.
No.
And it's very similar to a lot of the block coding programs.
What is block coding? You wanna explain?
Basically, if you stick together two things, it'll make your robot do something.
Like it has a bunch of options of code blocks, and then you like pull them out. Like one of them is like one green flag press to like start it.
So the fact that you guys all know that, and that is natural to you in fourth and fifth grade, that technology and being able to use those tools, where some of us around the table have no idea what you were talking about, suggests that some really good work is being done. That's just awesome, guys and gals.
Anybody else want to say anything?
I'm so proud of you guys. You guys are amazing. I love your enthusiasm. You're all great public speakers. Fantastic. Just
Thank you.
And thank you to the teachers who do this program with them and everything. And so, all right, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to have you. That's so great.
So this will be a pretty cool transition. So we have some elementary students that just talked about opting into an experience. It's an extracurricular, it's a choice of theirs, it's an opportunity that they're seizing. At the high school level, we also have a dedicated administrator there who is engaged in creating pathways and different avenues for students to move toward graduation and success after. So I'd like to introduce Danielle Foley. She's going to present two specific pathways and have some students to talk about those experiences with us tonight.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. I am Danielle Foley, Assistant Principal Extraordinaire of Alternative Educational Pathways at Timberlane Regional High School. Doesn't all fit on my business card. And I see a lot of future alternative education students who I cannot wait to work with. So when you get to the high school, make sure you come see me. So today what I'm going to be talking about are two of the three alternative education pathways that we have. So do I change the slide?
What's the best way, Dean?
you get the clicker.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
No worries.
Thank you, Dino. Dean is amazing. He had to deal with me sending him the slides late and then sending him the wrong slides, and he's just the best ever. So three of our alternative education programs are extended learning opportunities, the evening division program, affectionately named the Night Owls, and HiSET preparation program. So our extended learning opportunities are essentially they're ways for students to access their interests and earn elective credits for those interests outside of the traditional classroom. Sometimes those interests can be on a work site. They can be through private instruction, which two of our students that I have brought with me here will be speaking about their experiences soon. They could be, we have a student doing an internship at Pollard Elementary right now. We have a student doing one at a daycare in the district. One of them is doing engineering with Mr. Morse. We have a student who was not able to fit music theory 2 in her schedule, and so she is doing an independent study with Mr. Clark at the PAC. So basically, if students find an interest, they are able to gain credit for that outside of their traditional schedule. This year, we have 41 students enrolled, and as of right now, I already have 19 students who have reached out to me to show that they've been interested in doing an extended learning opportunity next year. So I'm thinking, hopefully, we will triple our numbers next year. Evening division, I have another student here to highlight how our evening division benefits our students. And students can take regular Timberlane Regional High School classes at night, Monday through Thursdays from 4 to 7. They are able to get the same credits that they would during the day, but at a time that is more accessible to them in their schedules. This year, we had 168 students in our evening division program throughout 25 classes. And then HiSET is our HiSET preparatory program. This is when students can prepare to take the high school equivalency test in order to show that they have completed their high school experience. We all know that education is not a one size fits all. So the HiSET prep program is teachers who are in the content areas of the 5 tests they have to take: math, science, social studies, reading, and writing. And they help the students prepare to take those tests at Salem High School so that way they can complete their high school education at their own pace. So a little bit more about ELOs. Some of them are what I call independent ELOs in the fact that they are not part of an established program, which we do have BioTrek, HCA Healthcare, Junior Firefighters, Police Explorers, Friends Forever International, Seacoast Science Center, and we are currently working with the Lions Clubs of the 4 towns to start potentially a community service ELO called the LEOs. And we've got internships, independent studies, private instruction, career exploration, job shadowing, apprenticeship, and internal or external work-based learning. So students who are doing the more independent ELO routes, they have to have an essential question, and then they do the 4 pillars of the ELO that are driven by those essential questions: research, reflection, product, and presentation. And so I am going to, these are, again, our current ELO programs. So we also have the PAC Theater Tech. So students are working in the theater tech area behind the scenes of the PAC, and their final culminating project for that was the middle school musicals. So here are some pictures. The ones on the right are the theater tech ELO. And then the others in the middle and on the left are reflections of my 2 ELO students that I have brought with me tonight. And we are going to start with Sean Violet, and he will be sharing with you his experiences.
Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. So I just completed my BioTrek ELO over at Army in Manchester. And Army is a nonprofit organization that takes a bunch of companies together, whether that be in the medical field or the automation industry. And what they're doing is they're trying to automate tissue production for tissue products. So that could be anything from 3D printing and growing skin for skin grafts to more organ parts for, say, heart surgery, or eventually organs in the future. The most up-and-coming product right now is actually islet cell groups for putting in the body for people with diabetes to completely and permanently cure them of their disease. But anyway, so the program I did was 1 week long, and it was a private instruction, and they condensed about 6 months of material into a week. So it was like boot camp, really. And so what I had to do was, me and my group, we conceptualized a temp product, so a tissue engineered medical product. And we had to conceptualize it, go through the whole steps of how do we do this, how do we set up production, how do we do automation for it. Then we had to set up a business model. Then we had to present it and pitch it to people at Army that talk and hold high positions. And my group actually won, so it was kind of like a mini Shark Tank. And I'm going on, and I'm going to be presenting on more of like a state level against other teams from other schools and other programs. So that was that one. And then the other program, independent study I'm doing, is on engineering. So I wanted to take an engineering course for this year. However, we lost our engineering teacher, so I had to do an independent study through Mrs. Foley. She's been really great helping get everything done. I mean, she helped organize the whole BioTrek and independent study, kind of gives a structure and makes it like want to feel like real class. And so I've been 3D modeling that electric skateboard you see. So your feet actually go inside of the wheels. And right now I'm actually machining the parts in my basement to make it. So I'm making a prototype version that hopefully I'll have done by the end of the year. So I'll be presenting that, and that'll be my kind of showcase and presentation of what I've done so far. So I'm gonna hand it off to Joey.
Very nice.
Welcome to you too, Joey.
Yeah, I'm Joey. I'm a senior, and I'm working on getting my private pilot's license. And so I was first up at Portsmouth, Pease International Airport, or I forget what it's called, but it didn't really work out so well for me. So I moved down to Lawrence, and then I got my first class medical, meaning like a medical to be able to fly, and it's sponsored by the FAA and stuff like that. So right now, yeah, I'm working on getting my private pilot's license. That's just 1 out of 5 licenses I need. The end goal is to try to go to the airlines or, fly private jets, corporate, or whatever. That's the goal. But I'm moving down to Florida to go get my IFR license, which that's like a fly through weather, clouds, any visibility. Then I gotta get my multi-engine license, and then I gotta go get my commercial license so I can get paid to fly.
You don't just want to keep doing it for a hobby.
Exactly. And then I have to get my ATP license, which is like airline transportation. I forget what the P stands for. It's not permanent, but I don't know. So right now I have airtime probably around like 70 hours. I had my first discovery flight April 1st of last year. And right now I'm working, I have to practice my maneuvers, so like steep turns, stuff like power on, power off stalls, engine out procedures, which, you know, they're not like training you. My flight instructor, he's not training you just to pass a check ride and to get your license. He's also training you to, like, if you actually have an engine failure, you have to know what you're doing. And if you have like passengers with you, you can't like freak out. You have to like know what you're doing, follow your training really. So yeah, the CLO has been really helpful for me because juniors, seniors, we get free blocks. I mean, you guys know that, but instead of just having a free block, I can go down to my flight school in Lawrence and practice, you know, flying and everything like that with my flight instructor. I also have an app called Sporties. It's an online flight program. It helps me have more knowledge in, like, you know, regulations. It's a huge book of regulations, and it's called the FAR name. But it helps you understand the regulations and to follow them. And yeah, it's just been really helpful. And I have a lot of hours on Sporties, and I also have hours, just all my hours are in here. This book is basically about, like, for like government really. But because when to log my hours, because the company's gonna have to see I did all this, so it's really important. But yeah, I'm moving down to Florida next year to, you know, go to Melbourne flight training and try to get my license down there.
Thank you. Awesome. So for Joey's presentation, he will be taking me in the air, just the two of us, and that will be his presentation for showing his skills that he has learned. And most people, when I say that, look at me the exact same way all of you are, especially my mom. But I have all the faith in the world in him, and I am assuming that this is going to be probably the best flight I've ever been on. So I'm very, very excited about that. And then the second alternative education pathway is our evening division program. So students are able to earn a high school diploma, taking the same classes. And it's a great environment for the students. This is especially great for students who suffer from anxiety, and they cannot go to 90-minute classes, go through the hallways with almost 1,000 students, and have to basically, they do not have the opportunity for the one-on-one time with the teachers as much as they do at night. So I currently have a student in our HiSET program actually, who was unable to get out of the car to come to school for 3 years. And now that they are in the HiSET program, the student comes, they're there for the full 3 hours every day, they're getting the work done, and they are happy to be there, and they feel as though they're finally able to get their high school education in a way that fits them. And it's also great for students who want to work during the day to also and still work towards a diploma, and that is Riley here, who she does Pinkerton CTE for diesel mechanics, for welding, and then you work during the day as a diesel mechanic. And so Riley's going to come up and share how evening division has benefited her.
Awesome. Welcome to you, Riley.
Hi. So evening division has helped me. I have not always been the best student. I need that one-on-one time with the teachers and a smaller environment because I get distracted easily. So it's helpful. There's only like 10 kids in the class, sometimes less. So they really sit down and help you and explain to you if you're having a hard time. As well as I work a full 40-hour day, as well as go to school to get my high school degree. Which is crazy because if you were talking to me last year, this time I would have told you I was dropping out because I am not a good student. I never was a good student. So this has really helped me. I have I've gone from failing all my classes to passing with 100s. So I also recently got accepted into college for submarine welding, and with my long-term goal to be an underwater welder for the Navy on submarines, as well as I also got accepted into the CAT apprenticeship diesel mechanics program, so I will be doing both.
So you can work on diesel subs too, right?
So it definitely has helped me a lot with also managing time. I go to Pinkerton in the morning, go to that welding class, do what I need to do, go to work for 6 hours, come to school, do what I have to do, and then I get up in the morning and do it all again. And it really has helped me with time management, like being self-regulated in a way, and just taking a lot of self-responsibility so I can get like to place. So, yeah.
So at the end of the day, the best part about the alternative education that we have here is the fact that it allows our students to have choice and accessibility, which is a lot of the UDL work we are currently doing right now in the district. It allows for flexibility. It allows for students to show their skills in different areas, especially when they don't often have those opportunities. A lot of it is student-led. Kids in some ELOs, they design the entire curriculum themselves, so they are only learning about what interests them. And again, it really focuses on those interests that they have, that they don't always have the opportunity to do. So if any of you ever have any questions about any of the alternative education that we do, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am happy to tell you everything I know if I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
I just had a quick question for Danielle.
Oh, yes, sorry.
That's okay. And this does not include all of the tech opportunities that we give the.
Oh, so this is not included in the
vocational-
CTE, correct. So these are on top of them. So for example, a lot of the students in my HCA healthcare ELO, they were not accepted into the healthcare CTE. So they missed out on that.
There's
And now
limited
they are,
slots.
yes. And whereas CTE is amazing, it's awesome, the issue with it that the students who are telling me is that they are contained in the bubble of the CTE lab classes, whereas the ones who are in the ELO, they are working in Parkland Medical Center, they're working in radiology offices in Salem. So they're really getting that firsthand experience of what it's like to actually be a respiratory therapist, a cardiac nurse, all of that. So it's on top of that as well, yes.
And would you say that it benefits in both ways of following your passion, but also maybe understanding sooner that it's not your passion? Have you ever said?
Absolutely. That is the best
students-
part of ELOs. So I had a student, she was convinced she was going to be a respiratory therapist, convinced this is what I want to do. My cousin is doing it, or so-and-so is doing it. I love it. She gets into this ELO. She spends half the time as in cardiac, half the time in respiratory. And she says, respiratory is so much more boring. I get to see so many more cool things, learn. So she can't, I love her, but she can't stop talking about how much she is learning, which is the best part of my job, is the fact that these kids show so much enthusiasm. I mean, if you put Sean in a room, he could talk to you about engineering and biotrek for hours, and it's just so fascinating every step of the way. So it's really great. And Joey's taught me more about weather than I ever thought I would be able to know, because he has to know everything about weather patterns and be able to do anything. And then over here we have Riley, who is, excuse my language, but she is a badass woman in the trades, and she basically has her pick of any job she wants as a woman in the trades right now, who is not only a woman, but she is a skilled, capable, competent woman as a result of all of the amazing opportunities she's had. And herself, of course. Do you have something?
Yeah. You guys should be so proud of yourselves. Really, seriously. I want to know if you're going to be selling stock to your rollerblades or your roller skates.
The lemon
Because I want to buy
skates.
some stock.
Yes.
But every once in a while, you wonder what we all do here, and it gets a little bit nerve-wracking. the last 20 minutes or so is exactly the answer why we're here and exactly how our children are benefiting from this place.
Absolutely.
So pretty transparent to me tonight, so thank you. And be very proud of yourselves, guys.
You guys are amazing.
Yeah, just wanted.
Oh, sorry, I just had a quick question for Riley.
Kim and Don.
You had said that you were frustrated, you were ready to give up and you were done. How did you know to go to Danielle and say, this is what? Did somebody come to you? Did you tell them what you were interested in? Like, how did that all work?
So I would go to my guidance counselor like once a week, and I have done night classes before to catch up on all of my failed classes, which there were a lot, but she said, hey, like, we do night classes and you can still graduate. And so me and my mom talked about it, and I was like, I'll give it a try, but like, school isn't for me. Like, I went in with that mindset, and I, not trying to like make, like, she's the best person, but she really makes sure that like everyone is all set, like has what they need. It's really just, what is it?
I don't know, but you're gonna make me cry.
She really like is good, like close with the students. Like, she is making sure that everyone's okay. She's always there to welcome you at the door. She's like, how was work? And I was like, it was work. But she really does care about all of her students, and you can really tell that like she wants what's best for all of us.
I can see that. I'm very, very impressed with you guys. This is this is what it's about. So thank you so much for sharing all that stuff with us.
Don?
I just want to say the maturity that you guys establish in the way you're going about things, the independence and the follow through and the ownership of your day, especially your day, which is never stopping, it seems. It says a lot about what type of great employee you're going to be someday, or what type of a business you run, or whatever it is. You're learning things that a lot of kids will not get coming through high school. I feel like this is the tip of the iceberg for Timberlane. In the last three years or so, it's grown exponentially, and I think your enthusiasm is something we must keep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm glad it's not exhausting for you. Anything else before I take my enthusiasm over there?
Nope, you can take it, and we appreciate everything
Thank
that you do
so
for our
much for the
students and
opportunity.
everything, and have a good evening. I think that's been my favorite student, staff, and family share so far. Like, everybody's been great, but those two are just really great. All right, approval of minutes, guys. We only have one set. What you need?
I just had two minor like typos that I.
Oh, okay.
So
Very minor.
Very minor. All right, like a comma somewhere.
like a Y instead of an H.
Oh, all right, cool.
That's all. Already noted.
All right. Besides,
I would like to make a motion to approve those minutes as amended.
I have a motion on the floor to approve the February 20th minutes as amended. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kim. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Are you opposing? Are you abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
I wasn't
Oh
there.
yeah,
I wasn't
duh.
there.
Abstaining.
Can
Sorry.
you say that again?
You're abstaining,
No,
right?
the Dow pop.
Duh. All right. Cool. Come on, man. Not tonight. All right. So, all right. Moving on to student rep. You're up, Abigail.
Okay, after a little vacation, I have some updates from the schools. So starting off with the high school. So girls basketball put up a good fight after advancing to the first round of playoffs, however, being defeated by a strong Pinkerton team. But boys wrestling won the state title, which is a super big accomplishment, along with the cheer team going to the state tournament. And a special shout out to sophomore Danielle Bates for competing at the New England meet, placing 3rd overall, and the former D1 state champ breaking the school's girl high jump record of 5'5", which is pretty amazing. And shout out to the other runners who performed at this high stakes meet as well. The class of 2026 is busy prepping for their junior semi-formal dance, which will be held in the TRHS CAF from 6 to 9 p.m. with a disco theme on March 15th. And they're also planning for their third annual spring craft fair to be held on Saturday, April 5th. So kind of if you're interested, reach out to the information posted on the district sites and social media to reserve a table. But other than that, very much encouraged to come and attend and see all of the super creative and unique crafts by the vendors. The annual Project Hope Fashion Show is going to be held this Saturday with doors opening at 5 p.m. And shout out to the community to come and see all of the live performances, the raffle opportunities, and overall the good cause that all of this revenue goes towards and the amount of work put in by the school. After school on Thursday, February 20th, so before vacation, the Outdoor Adventure Club went to Metro Rock in Newburyport to go on the indoor climbing walls. And the same club on Saturday, February 15th, also went to Pawtuckaway State Park doing a 3.5-mile loop of a snowshoe trip. There will be a PD day next Tuesday, and the SATs are fast approaching for juniors as well in April. And finally, at the high school, the Youth Risk Behavioral Survey will be administered, kind of what Mr. Lena was talking about at a few meetings, school board meetings before this. So which will take probably a little less than 45 minutes during the day in like a certain class period. So making sure everyone has their participation in for that. At Atkinson Academy, kindergartens through grade 2 celebrated the 100th day of school by participating in a readathon to raise money for schools in North Carolina affected by Hurricane Helene. And altogether, the students raised about $4,321, which is pretty amazing. At Danville School, so special thank you to the 5th grade students and staff members from all 4 towns who participated in the dodgeball tournament last night, hosted by the middle school. Thank you also to several staff members who volunteered time to make that event happen. And in total, there were over 200 staff and students involved in this event, and the Danville crew won the staff contest, and Atkinson brought home the student trophy. At Sando North this Friday, they will be kicking off their Healthy Heart School-wide Challenge to support the American Heart Association. And Sando North is also excited to begin their One School, One Book school-wide reading event. And students and staff will each get a copy of the same book, where over the course of 10 weeks, they will all be responsible for reading the entire book itself. And this event will include the participation of the local businesses to kind of tap in and engage in students asking specific questions about what story they read at these destinations, which I thought was pretty cool. And they're also looking forward to engaging in this reading experience to promote literacy goals and the love of reading in general. At St. Anne Central, the kindergarten information night is March 18th from 6 to 7, and they look forward to meeting returning new families, as well as sharing information about their kindergarten program. And at the middle school cheerleading and wrestling teams finished out their great season, competing at these state-level tournaments. Co-ed volleyball intramurals have also begun, and over 90 students are participating in the ski club this year, and these students are commended for following the core values at all times. That's my little recap today.
Very nice, thank you. Did we have any delegates or individuals?
So,
all right, could I get a motion to move the 30 minutes to the end of the meeting? Moved by Mark, did you second it, Jack? Any discussion, all those in favor? Cool. Moving on to current business is the NESDEC enrollment projection report. Hello, Mark.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
In your packets, I believe you have a executive summary and the latest NESDEC report. This executive summary, I'd just like to touch on mainly four key points, and they're all a visual in your executive summary. So that first one is really just a graph of seeing that our enrollment has or is projected to remain stable until about 35. So that's the projection, looking to go stable. There's a slight, like you can sort of see that there's potentially a slight increase there, but some districts are projected to go down. We are projected to just go stable for the next about 10 years. So that was that first point that I'd like to just show you. The second graph I'd like to just point out to you is the one that tracks births and kindergarten enrollment. And what I just wanted to point out with that one is that they are almost identical in that all of the births, and they tracked backwards. If you can see, like births 2009, kindergarten enrollment 2014, 2015. And so those two are, it's like the same cohort of kids. And so I just wanted to point out that they are, projecting together.
Okay.
Or linked together. The next piece I'd like to just show you is that, the downward trend that we were seeing in New Hampshire or at Timberlane, up until where it's this goes to stable is a downward trend across all of New Hampshire, across all of the Northeast, across all of America. So, you know, the enrollment going down is not just a Timberlane thing. It's a fact of where we are, New Hampshire, Northeast, and all of America is seeing that. And then the last visual, and I apologize for how small it is, because I was trying to show you a large, massive amount of data. That's actually, that data is not from NESDEC, that's actually my data using Power School data plus NESDEC data, because a number of years ago, I think when I first presented on NESDEC data, I was asked by a board at that time to compare NESDEC with reality. And so that's what I then went down that rabbit hole and started actually doing that, looking back to, I believe I went back, I'm trying to think.
2010?
2003.
And what is that reality, Mark?
So the majority of the time, NESDEC is actually projecting smaller than our enrollment. So the projections are coming out. NESDEC projects that we will have a smaller enrollment, but our enrollment is actually larger than what NESDEC projects. Some years it's a little bit larger, but if I look at the grand, like over since 2003, looking at these projections, NESDEC projects smaller enrollment than reality. So that is that last sort of visual that I wanted to just show there. So that was, you know, this presentation on NESDEC is really just trying to highlight those 4 visuals for you. But I believe your packets does have the entire NESDEC report, which is just a lot of data. You know, so I tried to just pull out those 4 components for you. So, any questions on that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before you leave, will you just explain because the alphabet letters and everything, will you just explain what NESDEC is and?
Sure. I should have done that in the beginning.
It's
I
okay,
apologize.
it's okay.
The New England School Development Council. And so what this report comes out, sometimes it's twice a year. Usually it's a fall report and a spring report. But it's used around districts to project enrollments in all grades across the district, and the way that it's broken down is the district as a whole, and then each of the 4 towns are represented. And actually that graph that I've made at the bottom, that's the district graph. I've made a separate one for each of the 4 towns. So if we really want to get into the data, we can look at each of the 4 towns and how they're going. But typically, you know, as NESDEC describes, it's the past, present, and projected enrollments that could be used by boards and administration for effective planning and allocation of resources. So that's why it's important to look at this data. And, you know, I will say that from a perspective at the high school, at least, you know, we do kind of keep this in mind when we start thinking about the courses that we're running, how many courses, and especially with, you know, with teacher loads and looking at, okay, if projections are expected to go up, you know, can we get rid of too many teachers? Do we need to keep teachers? You know, what's that long-term planning for teachers to make sure that we are offering kids everything they possibly need, but then also have the staff to do it. Yes, sir.
Does this, Jesus, anywhere in here does it project, like after the 8th grade, how many kids end up going to the high school versus how many kids we had in the grade schools and middle school?
NESDEC does not project that, but I do have, I mean.
That doesn't surprise me.
In the data that I have, you know, every year like I would project out how many kids would be going to a high school. Like I take the 8th grade class and say project it out,
Right.
But then I look at the actualities. And so every year I redo my graph to look at what I projected versus what is reality. And so in time, you could go back and look at that and look at how many kids, you know, would have been going on.
Well, right. Okay, thank you.
Don?
Yes, I mean, it looks pretty stable to me, though. You know, you say the nation's going down and whatnot. I'm looking across at the next, you know, several years, up to almost 10 years here. And pretty much there's some ups and downs, you know, in there, but pretty stable.
Yeah, that first graph, you mean? Yeah. So that is the one piece that I noticed, and that's why I want to point that out first. Is yes, the New Hampshire trend, the national trend is decreasing, but Timberlane is projected to be stable. And so I just wanted to point that out, is that, you know, even though there is that downward trend, and we did see a downward trend for a while, but that's now stabilized, which I think is unique.
So we should be able to count on kind of a steady anticipation of a curriculum of courses, of needs, you know, over a long period of time, which is.
That's how I'm interpreting it as well, and I kind of think about, you know, with our staff, especially at the high school, as I spoke about, is, you know, I kind of see that as we're projecting to have the same number of kids at the high school for the next 10 years.
Right.
So we sort of need then that same body of staff then to serve those students for the next 10 years.
Any other? Yep, Bree.
I was just wondering about Sandown. So this is Sandown North. It does not include TLC at all.
For
Just information,
which
statistics,
graph are you looking at?
any of it, but the Sandown enrollment, I guess.
The specific Sandown.
Are you looking at the NASDAQ report?
Yes.
So North versus TLC is just different grades.
So does this include the TLC grades?
Yeah, because they are, the report is looking at individual grades. So you can project, you know, how many kids are in kindergarten, how many kids are in first grade, and then, or, you know, and then it basically, you can project each individual grade using your NASDAQ report. So yes, you could differentiate North versus Central.
Any other questions? All right. Art.
One about and I remember hearing this the first time probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I think the commentary there or the weakness with the NASDAQ is it looked at rates of births, you know, by towns registered in towns, but it did not take into account building permits. And that's where we get those fluctuations. And I think that's why it falls short, because in our district, especially in the towns of Sandown and Danville, we've had a disproportionate, compared to the rest of the state, number of building permits. So people sell their homes, new people move in, great, it's a family to family. But when you start putting new homes in, that's something that I think that's why we see the fluctuation here. And their numbers here are not as accurate as they are in the rest of the state, simply because this part of the state is growing.
And yeah, I can't necessarily explain why NASDAQ has, you know, traditionally reported out, you know, lower numbers than actuality. Like there's probably numerous reasons for it, but it's a hypothesis. But yeah, I mean, I off the top of my head, I can't remember all the different formulas and all the different ways NASDAQ does it, but I believe building is in there somewhere, because I remember reading something about like they're taking something into account with buildings. But I don't know exactly what formulas they're using to do some of their projections.
Anybody else? All right, thank you so much. And thank you for keeping up with the other data, so it shows us versus.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Right, winter I-ready results.
I think I'm actually gonna go sit at the
Right.
table.
Send it.
Just because the cooker's over here, so,
Hi. Hi. How are you this evening?
I'm doing all right. So I am here to talk tonight about our winter, it's actually gonna be fall and winter I-ready results. But before we do that, I really wanted to be very intentional about providing information about what I-ready is. Why we use it, because it is both an assessment, but it's also an instructional platform, an instructional tool. And iReady is a different type of assessment from, say, the state assessments, or even classroom assessments, midterms and finals. So I wanted to be able to kind of walk us collectively through that and then look at the data so you have some context for what you're looking at and how we use it as a district. So in your packet, you should have all this, but I'm just going to kind of go along. So what is it? Again, the first aspect of iReady is that it is a diagnostic assessment. And so to kind of think about what a diagnostic assessment is, I'm going to make the analogy to medical terminology, right? So you go to a medical professional to get a diagnosis that might involve a battery of tests that might assess, you know, where different things are at with regard to whatever you may need the test for. Academically, a diagnostic assessment is something we administer 3 times a year. It is a touch point. It is by no means a final assessment. I think one of my colleagues, when we were talking about this, said it is a time to diagnose. It is not an autopsy. It is not the end result of student learning. It is a snapshot in time to allow us to better address some of the needs that might be identified through that diagnostic. So we assess reading and math across grades K through 8 3 times a year. So our fall assessment window starts really as early as the second week of school and usually wraps up by the second or third week of September. We then once again administer the diagnostic in January, usually as soon as we get back from the winter break, and that closes 2 weeks later. And then finally, we administer our third diagnostic of the year in late May, early June across those same grade levels. Again, it measures individual student performance against end of year grade level standards and skills. Those standards are the same standards that are in and embedded in our grade level curriculum document. They are tied to our course and grade level competencies. So this assessment, while it is not something that we developed, it's a national assessment developed by an independent company. It aligns very closely with the curriculum in both math and reading that we are teaching in all of our schools up through grade 8. We also get class and school reports. So while it does assess individual students and how they are doing against those standards, teachers have the ability to look at class level reports. We as a district leaders, we look at grade level reports, school reports, district data, and we have processes to analyze all of those different data sets and really try to dig into areas of strength, areas of need so that we can develop action steps for how we're going to respond to some of the things that we see. These results are also for individual students. Families, as once the diagnostic is administered, there are family reports that are for each individual student for both math and reading that we used to send home. We now are able to in PowerSchool. There is a storehouse of sorts in PowerSchool, and we send home login instructions for parents for how they can access those. So all of those PDF reports are now stored in PowerSchool. Parents can log in, they can pull up those reports and look back longitudinally to see how their students have progressed. This was the first year that we've started that. So as the time goes on, those reports will live in there. So parents can go back and check where was their child back in September as compared to January, as compared to June, or maybe even next year, depending on the grade that they are in. Those reports also allow teachers at the individual student level to plan for individualized and differentiated instruction. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is and what that looks like, and to identify appropriate supports for each student, sometimes groups of students, sometimes whole class instruction. So these slides that we're going to look at right now, these are sample, this is not our data. This is sample data that comes directly from iReady so that we can have presentations such as this one. So the first thing is iReady provides information and data sets on 5 different performance levels. So they're color-coded. Red, you can read it right there, indicates that those students, in this case, it is 2 students out of the set, are 3 or more grade levels below at the time of that assessment. The red, that it doesn't have the hash, is 2 or more grade levels below. Yellow is 1 grade level below or approaching the current grade level. The green that doesn't have the hash means that a child is early on the grade level that they are currently in, and green with the hash is that they are either at the midpoint or above their current grade level. What I want to emphasize with this is that when we look at this, and we've trained our teachers, our leadership team has gone through this training, the way in which we interpret these results and these colors changes as the year progresses, right? So if we think about a group of 5th graders who in September are starting school, they just completed 4th grade. They have not yet been exposed to 5th grade instruction. We would not expect many of them, some of them maybe, but to be in green. If they are in yellow, that means that they are actually where they should be. They are 1 grade level below. It indicates that they completed grade 4, and ideally they have a solid mastery of those concepts and skills. And so they are quote unquote ready to learn at the start of 5th grade. Once we get to winter, right? We expect to see more and more students moving out of yellow and also ideally out of red and progressing into green, but some students may not reach the green until the end of the year, which is okay. And that is the actual realistic expectation that we have, because these are end of year expectations. So that is one of the first things to think about as we look at our data and move forward. Next, if I can get it to move. There we go. So in the same diagnostic report, this is a reading report. I did not pull math, but it's not just a reading score, right? So there are different domains in the skill of reading that teachers, students, parents receive data on. And in some cases, students may be at or above grade level in one domain, and 2 or as many as 3 grade levels below in others. So this data allows us to really drill down to individual skills at that grade level and look at some of the next steps, and to be able to diagnose what does that student actually need to either close the gaps or move forward and challenge them a little bit more. So you can look at the different domains for reading. There is a similar system for mathematics, but it would be different domains within mathematics that we are looking at. Beyond that, this is another, again, sample report. These are not our students. But as a teacher, this is not something that parents would see, but our teachers and our leaders in the reports that we get by student, they are able to look across all of those different domains. So what I didn't capture is at the top of that, you would see the headings of all the domains that we just looked at, right? So vocabulary is one of those. I'll go back momentarily, but phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, etc. When we're looking at it at an individual student level, so the student at the top, the first student there, Elijah, who is an imaginary child, is performing holistically 1 grade level below, right? So this is a 5th grade report. He is in yellow. But we see that for phonological awareness, he has tested out, right? He is in the green. For phonemic awareness and other skills vocabulary, he may be as many as 2 grade levels below or 1, but this allows the teacher to drill down into what that individual child needs. Teachers also have the ability to create groups. iReady will actually create different suggested groupings of students based on their performance and areas of need, so that teachers within their own students can look at their group and say, okay, these children are similar in profile and that they may need additional challenge with vocabulary, they may need deeper instruction with regard to phonemic awareness. And so they are going to be a group who might receive a different type of instruction than their peers who might be at a different place. So again, this is built into the assessment reports. This is a sample student report that students and parents receive. And so again, you'll see the same domains, and it's a little bit small, I apologize, but you'll see those same domains. Next to that, you'll see a little blue arrow that says can do and next steps. From a teacher's perspective, those are active links that a teacher can click on in the program, and it will expand a variety of suggested next steps with regard to this individual child. So based on the diagnostic assessment, the results would indicate that this child is at this level. This indicates that the child can do these skills. So as a teacher is preparing their current instruction in reading, and they know that they are entering a certain unit, they're able to easily identify in their class of students who is at a place where they are quote unquote ready to learn what I am about to move into, who might need additional supports, who might need some scaffolding, and it immediately links to resources that are built in the program to give them, in some cases, scaffolded literary excerpts to be able to distribute to students, lesson plans that have been developed to help support them in their thinking, to support that idea of personalization and differentiation. The other thing I want to focus on the student report is on the left, that gray, green with the blue bar. iReady also measures growth and allows us to look at if students are on track to meet what is considered their typical growth and their stretch growth. So when we're looking at this report right here, you can see for this child, typical growth is that first bar, the kind of hashed one is stretch. Typical growth is what each child needs to meet in order to maintain where they currently are, right? So if a child is 1, 2, 3 grade levels below, typical growth is not going to help them to catch up with regard to where we hope they will be. So stretch growth is a really important but attainable goal for students that the program sets individually for each student. For some students, their stretch growth goal for the year might be 4 points on the assessment. For other students, based on where they start, it could be as many as 12 points on the iReady score. So it's, again, the growth is a different measure for each child based on their profile and the assessment. This is looking again at how the data is actionable for teachers. So if a teacher were to click on one of those blue arrows, it would lead them to something that looks like this. Again, so what can the student or group of students, what can they currently do? What are some next steps? And more importantly, what are some resources for instruction that would be appropriate for that teacher to work with that group of students or maybe that individual student? And that leads me to the next aspect of iReady, is that iReady is an assessment, and we are going to look at our data, but it's also an instructional resource that is tied to, again, our own curriculum. It does provide resources for learning in mathematics at all grades across which we assess, and in reading. And again, those can be tailored and personalized to the scores of a set of students. So in addition to the tools for instruction that I kind of jumped ahead, that's the teacher side of the instructional pathway. Students are also placed after they take their diagnostic assessment in September. They're reassessed in January and again in June. They're placed on what is called the personalized learning pathway. And this is something that, again, is individualized by student. It may be designed for students to work a little bit more independently. There are some video resources in there for students to watch. It could involve some reteaching of skills that maybe they were exposed to in the previous year or that year. Or for some students that are at or above grade level, it could be content that is designed to challenge them and advance them. And there are practice exercises to help them really practice on that skill to help close gaps. This is a more independent aspect of the pathway. For many parents who have students at the middle school, sometimes this is assigned as homework, although I think we are moving away from that. At the elementary level, this is sometimes work that might be conducted during the school day. Obviously, we do not want students to be on their computer working independently, for the majority of their time when they are in school. But it does allow students to have additional practice that is tailored to their specific needs. So again, it's an instructional resource that supports the assessment. So I'm gonna move to just a high level look at our fall to winter results. So these are district scores, these are our scores. They are no longer sample data sets. So what we're looking at, this comes right out of iReady, and it's just a screenshot, but the lower of those two bars, that is not as dark in color and is a little more narrow, those are our fall results as a district. So this represents all students, this is reading across grades K through 8, all grouped together. So at the beginning of the year, you'll see that if we take the two groups in green combined with yellow, those students in September were quote unquote ready to learn or already early on or at their current grade level, right? Because yellow in September is not something that we should be alarmed by. We definitely want to see growth. Red, those are numbers that we want to look at. Those are our kiddos that we really want to make sure that we are working on stretch growth goals with those children to help make up some of those losses. Winter, we're at mid-year, right? So we should not expect at this time that all students will be in green or on grade level. The goal is to see some of our yellow move to green, some of our red move to yellow, and hopefully dark green to increase. So right? What we have seen in reading across the district, and I just lumped them together because light green and dark green, we saw an increase of 22% to a combined 41% of students in green from fall to winter, right? With the other half of the year to go. We also saw a decrease from 22 to 13% of students in red from fall to winter, okay? Next, this is a data set that I create and maintain. We try to look at it across each individual grade as well. So this is looking at by grade level, but again, all of our elementary schools combined. So the first bar on the left, those first two, that's our kindergarten data. The left bar is fall, and the one to the right of that is kindergarten winter, and it goes all the way across to 5th grade, right? So again, the goal is to see an increase in green and a decrease in red, which we are seeing more significantly in certain grade levels than others. So that is reading. These are our fall to winter middle school results for grades 6, 7, and 8. I'll hover there for a minute. I know the numbers are fairly small, but for math, again, this is district-wide. We saw an increase from 36% in the fall to 54% of students in green, and a decrease from 25 to 16 of students in red. And that should say math. I apologize for that. Those are our math results. And again, these are the same data sets that we maintain ourselves, trying to, God bless you, trying to look at what that growth looks like across each individual grade level. And these are our middle school data sets. That is the last data set and slide, but what I will end with is that, we are bringing you high level district data. As I mentioned before, these data sets are things that teachers are talking about in their PLC meetings, team meetings. Some of this data it's one data point that's used as we design interventions, as we think about differentiation, personalized plans for students. So this is active data that we use on a regular basis. It is not really designed to be a measure of school accountability, right? It is not the type of data that we would look to measure how are we doing as a district as compared to other districts across the state or across the country. Because it's really designed to be used for an instructional purpose, again, to diagnose and then treat instructional challenges or challenge students in different ways, and to really support individual students and teachers in personalizing their instruction. So I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Dawn, I think you were trying to ask a question.
Well, I think you covered a lot of what I was looking at, but I am not concerned, but I'm curious about the time that a kid might spend over independently, or not just in the instruction that the class is doing, but with this in mind of growth, are they self-aware of what they're doing in preparation for the next time they're going to be assessed?
Yeah, so are you thinking about the pathway or the assessment or both?
The pathway mostly.
The pathway. Yeah, so it's interesting you bring that up. It's a great question. Had a lot of conversation, especially at the middle school level, around the pathway, how it's assigned, expectations for students. And one thing that we discovered is that for many students, when they are working independently, they want to get the answer right. They want to continue. They want to meet the goal that the teacher has assigned for them. And productive struggle is healthy, but not when it becomes something that paralyzes a student. And so we had a lot of conversation with our teachers about making sure that in their communication with students, it might be that they could say, we recommend that you work on this 20 to 30 minutes a week and get as far as you can, give it a good effort. The teacher has the ability to check on how much time was spent, and also see if a student is stuck and if they might need a check-in. And to make sure that as we're talking with students, no one wants a student stuck at home struggling on the same thing for hours on end because they want to complete an expected assignment from a teacher. And we're trying to move away from it's just automatically homework to do more school embedded if we're able to do that. So
Yeah, I just think about how important positive reinforcement is
absolutely,
yeah, and how that looks.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a topic of significant conversation at the middle school with the teachers and the administrators there this year. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
And is there a way to track, or are we tracking for those students who do need some additional tools and resources and guidance? Are we tracking how often their teachers are actually assessing the step link questions? The next step link. So for the teachers, they have that pathway. There was the arrow to pull down.
Yes.
Are we tracking how often that's utilized?
No, and that's not really something that we would have the ability to track in the program. But the way we would track that is right in PLC meetings, and we design. Some students may through iReady and other data sets, right? So we want to make sure that we're not just tied to one assessment. It's important to triangulate and get multiple data sets and things like that. But some of those students who qualify for intervention would have other data that teachers are looking at, and they may be on an intervention plan and working with, it could be their classroom teacher, could be an interventionist, could be a specialist. And so that's how we would monitor that and really look at their individual goals that they're working on through intervention and track their growth toward that goal. And so this is a resource. It is not the only resource that a teacher might use to be able to address some of these challenges. So, but it is a resource that we provide.
Question, if I may,
Sure.
which may be a bit more challenging. I understand that this is primarily used as a diagnostic tool, and
yes.
And I personally have seen the benefit of that in a very limited subset. However, why wouldn't it be valid to use that as a diagnostic tool to track our progress against other schools in the state at different touch points in time?
It's not that we can't, right? It's a nationally normed assessment. Students on their individual scores receive percentile grades that are normed against national, other schools across the country and districts across the country that use iReady. We can, but the purpose of this assessment for us serves a very different function than, say, some of those other assessments that we might look at. It is not our state assessment for accountability. It's something that we're using instructionally to support different tiered systems to support student learning. So we can, but that's not our goal and why we've adopted this. And different assessments have different purposes. And so a diagnostic assessment or a universal screener is a different type of assessment from, say, a summative multiple choice test or a SAT exam. It's a different type of assessment, right? It's not a cumulative, it's an adaptive assessment. So I should have mentioned that. As a student is taking it, the questions automatically adjust for each individual student, and they progressively either slightly become more difficult, and if a student successfully answers them correctly, it might continue to become a little bit more challenging. And eventually it would level off. And then if a student answers it wrong, it'll go down a step, and then it'll eventually level off. And that's how it determines individual student performance.
I get that, and I understand the functionality of it. However, if it's universally applied across the state, I'm wondering if this might
it's
be
not all districts utilize
for the districts that do utilize it.
So I do not have access to other districts' iReady data. It's not something
iReady does
that's
not
shared.
supply that to.
No.
Okay. In that case, I have no more questions.
Shauna, Bree, and then I think Don wants to.
So I have two things. So thank you for this presentation. Very, very helpful. So I love hearing that our individual teachers have access to data points related to their classrooms. I would love for you to speak. I am aware of this, but for those at home that may not be aware of this, can you speak to what a PLC is?
Sure.
and then how our grade level teachers use data in PLC meetings related to iReady?
Sure. There are, PLC functions a little bit differently in elementary and middle. PLC
Is that called
is an
POP?
acronym.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was
that
like,
stands for, it's Professional Learning Community. And so at the elementary level, our PLCs are really our grade level teachers at each elementary school. And so depending on the number of first grades, that first grade team is a PLC. At the elementary level, they meet for 90 minutes once a week. And one of their functions is to look at student data. It may be iReady data. It may be some other data sets that they have. It could be formative assessments. It could be assessments that we administer to look at phonics and phonemic awareness and things of that sort. And when they are looking at that data, one of the processes that they go through is looking at different students and different levels of performance to be able to identify potential groups that as an instructional team during their personalization block, they might be able to team up and be able to share students in such a way that this group might need some extension with regard to this topic. So this teacher might work with that group of students. So digging into the data, they look at it from an individual student perspective to identify any students that they think might need more or may not be responding to instruction or intervention. But they also look at it across the entire grade level to think about, as a team, how can they be the most effective with their students. Middle school is a little bit different. Their PLC time is 45 minutes, about once a week. It's content time. They typically meet as a team of sixth grade ELE teachers or sixth grade math teachers. And some of their work is focused on the data. Some of it is work focused on instructional planning and things like that. But it is something that we actively look at with our teachers.
and one follow-up to that is, can you explain about, so those are building-based PLC opportunities? Can you speak to some of the district-wide opportunities that they have too?
Sure.
Just to show the rigor and the procedure at Pollard, at Atkins, it's the same, and then those grade level teachers have an opportunity district-wide, right?
They have it, so they would be looking at their own data. We regularly, when we have our district data, we share that with our administrative teams, our principals really, and assistant principals. And we, for the past several years, we have not done this yet this year, but we have what we call data days, where it is designed to set up opportunities for teachers to come and look at a deeper level at data. It might be school level data, school-wide data. Sometimes that happens in after-school staffing meetings, where they're looking at, they might teach first grade, but that's their opportunity to look at holistically how are other grade levels doing, and quite honestly celebrate successes that in different grade levels and things like that, or maybe offer supports. So, yeah.
So I was just wondering about what kind, and it was slightly answered, but what the orientation or mentorship about like new staff for utilizing this looks like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the assessment almost administers itself. So when a child logs in, it walks them through a tutorial and things like that. So for the assessment aspect of it, of course, we have to expose them and train them, and we do that usually through new teacher induction. We have a session that's always identified through this. Our mentors, one of the things that they work on with their mentee is to go over iReady and make sure that they're comfortable with it. Beyond that, we have a partnership with iReady. Part of our contract for the assessment and the instructional platform is we receive up to 6 to 8 different professional development days. And so we have a consultant who will come to our schools. We just had a session not long before break at the middle school. In the coming month or so, we have 3 additional days where that consultant's coming and working with teachers. Sometimes it's at individual grade levels. More often than not, the elementary level, we bring our 2nd and 3rd grade teachers, or kindergarten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all together across all schools to be together and review data and protocols for how to act on the data that they receive, which is really what the purpose of it is.
And then my parents' side of things because it was like, oh, this is what it looks like in Power School. And I'm not gonna lie, my husband does all the Power School stuff because I was never trained on it. I never got an orientation. So how are you reaching the parents to know that this is here and that
So we letters go home every time that once the reports are ready and are loaded up into Power School. And again, this is the second time we've done it this way, but Ken Henderson has prepared instructions for how parents can access that. It's almost like a file cabinet, if you will, where assessment documents are stored, and it'll walk them through step by step how to see those results. They also always have the opportunity to call the school and request a hard copy. We're happy to do that.
And then Jack.
Do you have other common assessments teachers would get a read on how they're doing with their instruction and that would show some consistency with the results that you're getting already?
So at the elementary level in math, our teachers actually this year are rolling out, they have common assessments that they developed at each grade level in mathematics. And that they're administering, and that is something they're working on this year, is looking at results so we can have that data, and that's part of it's one of our many data points that we're looking at as we're having conversations about kids. At the middle school, yes, those teachers work very closely, and most of their summative assessments for whatever unit they're working on are common across all teachers at a grade level. With some exceptions, but for the most part, they work very collaboratively for all of their assessments. So,
Jack.
So although I know this isn't a tool to do this, do you see a correlation between standardized testing and the results here?
Yeah.
Do they track each other?
To
Because I
a
see
certain
some
extent.
pretty good improvement here.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I think what's really interesting, obviously to try to pull some sample slides to show you, I was on their website recently, and they actually have a chart that tracks at a state level how predictive iReady is of student performance on the state assessment. And they have a multitude of states, but not New Hampshire. And
glad I asked.
but I know that they are working on that. I know in talking with some of the people at Curriculum Associates that they own iReady. It is something that they are working on, and likely right now New Hampshire is not there because all those other states utilize the Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium, the SBAC, which we used for a couple of years before we switched to the New Hampshire state assessment system. So they just may now have finished that data, but the company is working on pulling data together to determine how well it can predict student performance on the state assessment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Listen, how much of those children that this is flagging on the lower end of the scale, are we seeing the results that we're seeing on the reports? Are they actually representative of how the student is doing in the classroom? So the reason why I'm asking that is because, just for example, my kindergartner, he had his fall test and then he had his winter test, and I forget if it was reading or math, he actually had a significant drop in the score. And I was like, that's really weird because that's not correlating with what we're seeing at home. So I actually reached out to his teacher because I was like, do we need to be concerned? And she's like, don't even look at that score. That score is completely different than what I'm actually seeing in the classroom. Like, how often are we seeing that drastic difference?
Anecdotally, we know that happens with certain students. There are certain students who have test anxiety, who are this type of computer-based assessment may not be something that allows them to best showcase their talents and their skills. That is a true statement for any and all assessments that we administer, including the state assessment. And so, right, we know that this data represents one aspect of what a student knows and is able to do, which is why having a teacher analyze that data with a more well-rounded knowledge of each individual child, they're able to look at it through that lens of, is this something that really we should be concerned about, or could this have been an off day? I did not show this, I don't know, I think on one of these slides, if I can go back to it. We also have the ability to see, so that child, Michael Huss, that flag means he rushed. And that may tell the teacher to question, is Michael really at a grade 2 or 3 level? Or was Michael not in the mood to take his iReady that day? So, right, there are a variety of things that impact student performance on these tests, which is why we cannot rely too heavily on one data point as the individual and sole measure of student performance and success. And I mean, you see what we looked at today. And I don't know how those students performed on their iReady assessments when they were in 8th grade. But I do know that they have skills that they've acquired that may not be measured on this type of test, so.
So no Fruit Loops next time for breakfast.
And Alyssa, I think an awesome opportunity to really want to educate people and convince parents that when you have those questions, to call the classroom teacher, to call the school,
And I immediately emailed
to
her.
have that
and
interpretation of
she came
events.
right back
And
with it.
yeah, so well done for you, but let's also encourage everyone else to do that because the teacher would be the primary holder of that information.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Thank you for putting
Thank
that together. It was really good.
Education,
Thanks.
thanks.
Thank you, Sandy.
Dan, I'm gonna just leave it to you.
My kid knows how to manipulate that. Right, we got a couple policies for second read and one for first. Shauna, I know you were late to the party. Were you gonna present on these or do you want Sandy?
I don't know that
Up to you.
I don't know that I missed anything, cause I think so policy EBBD, and if Sandy or anybody else that was there today, please jump in, is the indoor air quality and water quality. So there are no changes from the first read from the last board meeting, as well as JLCE, emergency care and first aid. So we're just bringing them back for a second read and adoption.
Does anybody have, yep, great.
I know last meeting I had requested an update about the Danville lead.
I'm sorry, the Danville.
Lead in the water.
So if I may, Madam Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
So the Danville lead has been mitigated with filtering systems and the appropriate replacement of fixtures. So no, the lead level, I mean, there's lead in every water that we're drinking, but the level is not to the extent that it would statistically will do damage.
And so there are no longer non-drinking water fountains and non-drinking faucets, hand wash only faucets, things like that.
I can't answer that question. There are hand wash only faucets all over the district because they're not.
Some were for lead poisoning, for lead content though, and not for other health purposes.
So I've been told that all of our lead has been mitigated, but I will double check whether or not there are still fixtures that may have signs on them and why they may have signs on them. Is that what you're telling me? There are still fixtures with signs on them?
Potentially.
Okay, forgive me for that got by me last time because we did have a conversation. I did have a conversation with the team about mitigation, but we had a bathroom at the high school that we had to close because of issues, and I found out that the sign had been left on there for 3 weeks and it was already fixed. So it's possible, right, that, why is that sign still there? So let me double, and I'll share the information.
All right, any other questions on these two policies? Mark?
I do. One, and just a clarifying question, I thought I'd asked it and my understanding may have been wrong. It says to limit exposure in lead drinking water and require schools to install compliant water bottle filling stations or to test and remediate all water outlets.
So once again, Madam Chair, if I may, and I can do it now or I can do it during my administrator's report. The New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has certain requirements for water testing that we have to comply with. And it's based on this statute, I had it here somewhere. It's based on their statute.
That's what we were talking about. Okay, that's why I was confused because it almost seems to be not contradictory, but at odds with saying and or. Hey, test it or put in water filtration. But New Hampshire DES.
We're required to test. And in some cases, I'll give you an example, and I talked with Blake today. Blake does the collection for us. He doesn't do the testing clearly. We would do normal things. Here's, for example, Atkinson's, one of Atkinson's reports, a faucet of 2 bubblers, the nurse's room, most of the nurses' rooms are all checked because they're using the nurse's sink, for medication. A variety of classrooms at Danville were checked. Things of that nature. And again, it's not Blake that makes the decision of what gets checked. They're random sampling.
Yeah, no, I wasn't questioning that. What I'm questioning is we will be adopting a policy that says option A or option B, but essentially the state, DES, trumps it, and there's only option.
Right, and we're testing for a variety of organic and chemical chemicals that are toxic for consumption. We also, while we're on the topic, we treat all of our water with water softeners, but we don't have any other kind of filtration system outside of the well. However, in addition to replacing fixtures, Blake will also, something that's been deemed lead, will also put a water filter on that fixture as well, a lead filter.
If I could have a follow-up. So if a faucet or receptacle tests positive, we have a filter that can remove the lead from it.
Correct.
Don't we have some water filling stations that have been cleaned, then all of a sudden they test positive and then they'll be clean again? We do, right? In which case, why not just put filters on all the faucets because you don't know when one's gonna test positive?
Well, I mean, it's a cost issue it's a costs issue. All the bottle filling stations have carbon filters on them. That's a standard, that's why you see the little expiration thing on the side, on the top.
Does that remove lead?
Carbon filters remove lead.
So you understand the question, I'm not trying to be difficult, but if we have, 40 different water spigots in the schools and some of them can test with no lead, month after month after month, then test for having lead.
Right.
And then not, why not? So we don't know which ones.
So I'll give you an example. Blake and I are having our conversation today. He said, the first place that the recommendation is to replace the fixture because oftentimes it's there. However, we have some old schools here. And in one school in particular, he replaced the fixture and the test came back the same. So he put the filter
Same
on
positive,
it. Yeah, he put the filter on it because that lead could be it could be lead solder, which was a very common thing years ago. Also, there's a theory of, Blake was saying, we have a new water testing company. The other company might have, you flush the system and then you let the water sit for 8 hours and then you test. In some cases, we would flush the system and the water would sit for longer periods of time. And so then, depending upon how long the water sat, it came back positive, it came back negative. I think the bottom line here is that we do monthly testing. We're in compliance with the state, and our children's potable water, or the water that is used to cook their food, is safe. Is as safe as we can make it.
What's the cost? So would the cost associated be to have, do you know offhand, to mitigate and put that filter if a particular faucet or water spigot tests positive, you replace that, it tested positive again, so it's somewhere downstream.
They don't test positive again once we put that filter on, or they haven't to this date.
Okay.
So do I hear, Mark, you're asking me how?
Why not put filters on everything?
What it would
What's the cost?
to put a filter on every spigot in the district?
Yes.
I don't have the answer to that. I also don't know that there is a need for the test. They're still going to require us to test.
Right, but and so we can't get away from testing, but there could be a spigot that would have tested positive, on day 2 and is not being tested till day 30. So that's 28 days of potential water with lead in it above acceptable levels. And then you don't know it until day 30. And then you address it. That's all. I'm just wondering
I understand what you're saying.
associated.
If you want me to cost out, or if the board so chooses, and the superintendent directs me to cost out putting a filter on every spigot in the district, we can cost that out for you.
Just asking because we have done it on some, and I didn't know if you had the numbers offhand. I'm not asking you to do the extra. Okay, cool.
Just keeps going. Mark, let me help you with that a little bit. I think your concern is that we have a spigot that tests negative, and then 2 days later it tests positive, and why not mitigate the opportunity, the potential to be drinking or being exposed to lead by putting a filter on everything? I mean, to me, it's safety first. To me, it's a no-brainer, quite frankly, and I quite frankly don't care what the cost is versus kids drinking lead, having lead in their water. I don't even wanna take that risk,
Well,
frankly.
hold up. So Dr. Martin has already stated that all of the kids drinking water has got a filter on it and it's tested, and what they're cooking with and everything like that, it's safe, correct?
Our tests are coming back safe.
Okay, so.
And when, on the rare occasion when they don't, we
I'm trying to.
it's very rare, but, I mean, I'm interrupting you, Katie, forgive me.
No, I'll let you have your moment and then we're gonna, not because you need to,
I
and then
understand.
we're gonna get back to the policy, but go ahead.
So perhaps the solution here is for us to put the data from a year's worth of testing in a spreadsheet so that you can all see where we've been. Is that, so you can see, okay, is that all right?
I feel like that would be
Superintendent?
amendable.
Sounds great.
Okay, let me bring that back next time we meet.
That sounds great. All right, but back to the policies. Does anybody have any questions about the verbiage? Even though it was a good discussion, don't get me wrong, but
Yes,
back
for
to this. Any other questions on the second read adoptions?
I'll make a motion to accept it for second read.
Both policies, EBBD
Yes.
and JLC.
Yes.
Motion made by Jack. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Shauna. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstain. All right. What are you doing? Abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
All right, we got one abstention. All right. Next policy for first read is naming new facilities.
So FF policy naming new facilities was brought to policy under a request from the board related to putting some parameters in place related to the particular policy. The I don't want to say former policy, but the current policy we have is very vague and non-descriptive, I would say.
Like 2 sentences. Isn't it?
And yes, and so that can make it a little bit challenging. And so I know that this board had asked policy to reflect on coming up with a policy that had some parameters related to naming new facilities. So this is the labor of a lot of policy committee meetings and a few subcommittee meetings where we did I just want to share the process of what led to this. So we spent some time talking about our district, the history of our district, how the current policy has been utilized. And then some of us on the committee did some research about other school districts in the area, what their policy is for naming new facilities. Did we feel that their, process and criteria would be relatable to our Timberlane community and experience? And so essentially what you have before you is a tapestry of several other NHSBA language, other school districts that had some really great reflection and language related to criteria. And so we come before you with this naming of new facilities that has some criteria. So there's the purpose and general policy. So overall, what is a facility, and actually explaining if it's, a chair or a room, or, if it's a new facility that's been built. So there's some criteria related to that. In addition to that, there is the general guidelines for naming of buildings or facilities or for dedicated spaces. So it even breaks it down even further, talking about whether or not you're naming it after a person, an organization, or a group, and then criteria related to that. And then as well as what our district would do with all of those subcategories and information, and how that would be presented and created into a nomination for a naming of facility. So, and it does go into memorials and recognitions in terms of memorializing outstanding contribution of current and former
folks. So it's pretty lengthy and detailed. I know you guys all got it in your packet. But if you have any questions or feedback, we would love to hear it. This is where our committee landed after multiple workshop related discussion during policy.
I have a question, then Jack, and then Alyssa, did you have something?
Yeah, I just had a question.
Okay. For me, on number 4, where it says naming a facility or portions of a facility shall consider, just under C, the waiting period of 1 year. What was the landing and the thought process of just that time period? Like, I'm not against it.
No,
but
but that was
that was
feedback
my
from this board. That was
Okay.
feedback from this
Okay.
board about just like a timeline or a length of just some type of
Well, I know
criteria
we had
because
thrown
the
around a lot of numbers.
a lot of numbers. And so what we found in our research was that most districts that have a policy, it is a 1-year period. So we just aligned ourselves with their current practices. And then it offered an opportunity for our board to discuss it, since a timeline or a range of time was a criteria that was brought up by the board related to this policy.
Jack, and then
I just wanted to tag on with what Shauna said. The discussions and the thoughtfulness of the committee putting that together was really impressive in my opinion. And there was a lot of due diligence done and a lot of, I'll say compassion, I think is the best way to put it, when thinking about how we proceed forward with it. So I give the committee great kudos in their due diligence in this. It wasn't easy.
Don.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great guideline, and the board can do a number of things given some unique circumstance, to make a motion to do a different thing, but as it stands, I think it's a very respectful process and criteria that makes common sense to me, at least.
And then Alyssa, you said my question was your question.
You asked the same question I had, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for this policy? Thank you for the policy committee for diving into this, because I know this was a big undertaking.
Well, we, as a committee, I just want to thank the board for the patience for giving us the space to be able to process this and give it the diligence that it needed.
There's no further comments. Does someone want to make a motion to accept policy FF for first read? Mark made the motion. Who wants to second it? Don's gonna second it. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstain. All right, cool. Administrator's report.
All right, all 3 of us have a couple of items for you tonight. If I could ask Dr. Martin to start.
Absolutely.
And then Solaire and I will conclude.
So first of all, happy Music in Our Schools Month. So it's Music in Our Schools Month in Timberlane all the time. This is a national initiative, and our music folks will be definitely showcasing much of their work. I did get the date for the Dallas Brass concert at the PAC. That is April 15th at 7 p.m. Encourage you to attend. I'm going to work on that myself. Want to thank the Pollard PTSA for entertaining me the other night and allowing me to talk with them about our warrants and some of the metrics of our district to assist them in their decision making as they exercise their constitutional rights next week. In regards to our athletic department, our student representative did a great job highlighting the great work that our teams and our coaches have done this past winter. I wanted to give you a coaching hiring update. Mr. Fantasia, my hand hurts from signing the documents for all the coaches for the spring. We're going to be fully staffed. I asked him if he wanted me to make a public shout out for any of the empty coaching positions, and he said no, he's got folks in the pipeline that will be coming forward for approval. So we're great there. Tomorrow we have a meeting with, I can't believe already, with our grounds people and athletics to discuss our spring season. And that just gives me great hope. It's here. It's here, and the guys are working on the mowers right now, so that's really exciting. For those of you who are woodworking geeks, as I am, you may be very interested on the 11th of March. A 30-foot milled oak beam will be installed in the 1803 portion of Atkinson Academy. This will take place between 7 and 8:30 a.m. There'll be a crane on site, and this beam will span the 1803 building from front to back. So I'm gonna pop over there before I pop to PD sessions, because that's really gonna be interesting to see.
Well, sorry.
Sorry.
Will we be taking videos and pictures of that? That's kind of a.
Chris Roy is usually really good about doing that, but I will remind him.
Dean says yes.
Okay, because also the EEI and our construction folks that are working on the Belfry will be doing planning a presentation for the students in the schools. So I'm sure that will be included. During February break, there was a great deal of work done all over the district. My biggest concern were what the weather did to us with roof leaks and ice and backups and having to move kids out of a classroom at Atkinson and so forth. So there was our folks were really intense with that kind of work. Our facilities director got up on the roof at Atkinson and assisted the guys with removing ice and snow and water and so forth, and then a couple of other buildings as well. So kudos to the guys that to get all that business done. We had a gas leak at the middle school. Snow and ice are so interesting in how it melted on the roof, and as it was coming down the roof, it moved the boot. They're called boots that hold the gas pipes up, and then stretched them enough to pop So, I mean, the timing was good that it happened during vacation, and we were able to get all of that taken care of so that my rule is followed, no interruption in instruction, and no discomfort for students, or little discomfort for students. I want to thank Mr. Sapia for the video that he sent me regarding the envelope of the high school and the issues that exist out on the facade of the high school. I presented that to our facilities folks yesterday, yes. And they're going to identify the areas inside of the building that coincide with what's on the outside of the building to assess leakage. And also, we will be providing a tour for any board member that wishes to tour the inside of the building and see those areas as well. Will you give us a little bit of time, if you would, to get that assessed? Besides that, EEI is worked on some punch list items during the vacation area. We now have roof access to the high school through the high school without the guys having to put a ladder outside. They cut a hole through the roof and put a steel ladder through the facilities area. I call it the stairway to heaven. It's bright yellow. Yeah. I know, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, look at this, the stairway to heaven. And there are, again, a variety of other things, punch list type items that were worked on during vacation. So very soon, the building automation system, I mean, I think it may already have been done, but will be completely handed over to us for the high school. Chris Roy will be done with that work. We also met today with John Vaccarezza and his team to talk about the summer work at the high school, which will be extensive. It's the remaining window work. We've identified the areas where that will be done, where summer school will be at the high school, and I think we had a very good meeting today. We'll have a follow-up meeting to sharpen the issues with what has to be moved, what has to be covered, what needs to be secured, and so forth. But we're on top of that and hope to have that complete. I told Chris the second week of August, so we have time to clean. But we'll see how that rolls. And I believe there's a lot more, but that's it for now.
Quick question to you, Dr. Martin, if you don't mind. The canopy in front of the high school.
Yes.
There's a lot of ice up there, a
Yep.
lot of thawing, a lot of freezing.
Yep.
Is that still scheduled for spring break?
So the guys are, they ask me about it every time we meet. They're very mindful of it, and they've been paying attention to the thaw and so forth. It it is on the list for demolition. And we have yet to firm up a date. Lots of things it's gonna be done. I guarantee you that, but we are not firm on a date at this time.
Sooner the better.
I hear you.
Thank you.
This statement conveys a sense of assurance.
New phone, I can't figure out.
Don't worry.
We're the Atkinson kids when you need them.
Talk to one of your grandsons.
That's right.
All set?
I am.
So I also had the opportunity this week to attend a PTSA meeting. I was with Sandown PTA on Monday evening, and we had some great conversation. I was able to hang out through the entire meeting. And I just want to say we have some amazing community members who are planning some pretty special activities for kids in our communities, ranging from the book fair. There's a paint night that's going to happen at the Sandown Rec Building. They've got some really fun opportunities that they're working on for kids. So many thanks to them. I want to talk about two primary things. The first is that we have our District Professional Development Day next Tuesday. You are all invited and more than welcome to come. Our keynote is taking place on Tuesday at 8 a.m. in the Performing Arts Center auditorium. This is a professional development day where we have both our teachers, but also our paraeducators, administrators. So we have a really large group coming on Tuesday. It is also a day that is designed with the assistance of our professional development committee. And typically the theme for that day is teacher voice and choice. And so on that day, we have 40 of our own staff who have designed and will be presenting different workshops throughout the day. Some of them collaboratively in groups, others independently. We also have 8 outside external presenters and consultants coming. The theme for the day, as it has been all year for all of our professional development days, is Universal Design for Learning. And really the focus for that is one of our district goals is about providing pathways for students and removing barriers for students to access their learning. And we are very fortunate to have this high level of participation. We're really excited about our offerings. Our keynote address will be delivered by Dr. Katie Novak. She is an internationally renowned consultant, expert in UDL. She has authored multiple books on Universal Design for Learning, and her session will be entitled The Art of Unlearning. And so part of professional growth is the art of reflecting on the practices that we have in place to determine, as we talk about with our students, it's really determining, are we instructing our students in a way that is best meeting their needs, and what practices might we need to acknowledge and let go of to move forward and better serve our students. So Katie will be delivering that address. We start at 8. She'll be starting around 8:15. And you are all more than welcome. We have plenty of space in the Performing Arts Center auditorium. After that, our teachers and paras were able to choose between a total of 54, I believe I did the math, sessions throughout the day. Some of them are 55 minutes in length, some are 2 hours long, but they are all united in that theme of Universal Design for Learning. And some of them are more focused on how do we support students who might have different instructional needs in mathematics, in reading. Others might be more focused on student behaviors, climate, culture, building relationships with students, but they're all really supporting that district-wide mission to remove barriers and provide students with different pathways and access to all the great learning that we offer here. So that is Tuesday. We're really excited about that. And many thanks to our professional development committee. Now, Lucy Kanotis and Mark Patterson are over there. They've been instrumental in helping to plan this day. And it is a heavy lift, and so we really appreciate the work of all of those people. Secondly, I want to, this is going to be the first of many times that I likely speak with all of you about some significant work that's happening at the state level. And so again, this is, I'm sort of bringing this here. I brought this information to our Curriculum and Assessment Committee meeting this past Tuesday, but I wanted to let the board know that we at the state level are in the process of, our state board of education is moving to potentially adopt revised minimum standards for public school approval. And those are known as the ED 306 rules. Those rules govern everything ranging from the policies that districts need to have in place, the definitions of what different aspects of education mean, all the way up to how credits are earned at the high school level, the number of credits that are the minimum requirements, the courses and subjects that have to be offered at all levels across schools, and graduation requirements and competencies and things of that nature. It is a tremendous amount of information. I can tell you that since this happened in early December, since January, many of us have had the opportunity to engage in state level work groups that have been set up not through the Department of Ed, but the New Hampshire School Administrators Association is taking the charge to provide opportunities for district educators, school leaders, teachers, to get together to have these remote discussion sessions to dig into different aspects of the rules. And there was an in-person session that I attended myself in Concord on January 24th. Since then, I think we have had 8. There will be another one tomorrow morning that I would be signing on to. 8 2-hour remote sessions to dig into these rules. And really, the work of that group is to compare side by side the current rules with the new language to be able to identify what are the changes that we need to be aware of. And more importantly, what are the implications for school districts? What do we need to start working on immediately? And what have we already done? What can we check off? And to prioritize at an individual district level, what is the work that has to happen? Some of the most significant changes I can tell you will be in the high school graduation requirements. There are different topic areas that are now requirements for graduation that range from logic and rhetoric, which is a credit now requirement at the high school for graduation, personal finance literacy. There are changes to social studies requirements. It's a significant amount of information that we collectively are digging through across the district. Do I have to separate you two over there?
I'm sorry, Sandy, go ahead.
That's okay. So this is really, I wanted to notify the board because over the next 18 months, more than likely, I neglected to say that these are slated to take effect in 26, 27. And so with regard to graduation requirements, the rules would take effect across the board for all grade levels. But with regard to credit bearing changes at the high school level, those would start with the incoming freshmen who come in 26, 27. I believe that is the class of 2030. When we said that the other night at CNA, we all kind of paused for a moment and said, that's really weird to say. But that gives us really, if we are planning next fall, as we always do, to roll out our program of studies for the following year for students to register as an incoming group of freshmen, these are changes that we need to have in place really in the next 6 months. So again, we will be bringing you regular updates and information. More than likely, we will be bringing you a lot of policy work because that is a part of this. We will likely be bringing curriculum units and standards that you will need to reapprove. You will be hearing about the new graduation requirements, and it's going to be a lot of work. And so I am informing you that that is happening, and we will keep you updated. And like I said, it may be a regular feature of my administrator's report. So, yes.
So that's like Sandy planting a little seed that is going to grow into like a forest kind of down the road for you. So I have 7 things tonight, 3 of them looking backwards. I just finished up my second round of visiting the Board of Selectmen meeting. Maria, the CFO of the district, joined me for this one. We really concentrated on 2 things, and we really mirrored what was happening at the PTSA levels at the schools. We did a really good job of presenting some factual information about district metrics, things about student enrollment, pieces around staff and staff retention and reductions. We looked at actual expenditures from this year to last year as well. Pieces of information that I felt like people needed to see and understand, as Dr. Martin alluded to, as they're preparing to cast a ballot or their vote on March 11th. I'm going to look forward to scheduling something again with the BOS. I think that we established those pieces to be looking at the relationship and the working relationship between the town and the schools. So we're off to a good start there, and we'll continue to engage with them over time. Second, we've heard about dodgeball from last night. I need to continue to talk about it because when I pulled into the parking lot, it was awesome to see everyone out there on an evening. When I got into the gymnasium, you cannot imagine, or maybe you can, the level of energy from fifth grade kids in their middle school in a gym for the first time, really with boundaries that are loose. In terms of the evening, and that just felt really good. I sat off to the side for a bit and really just watched the families watch their kids perform. And I wanted to encourage them to look at that as like a microcosm of education. These are kids that this is the first time they're doing this. So they're opting into something, they're taking a risk, they're connecting and belonging in their communities, and they're doing it in a performance manner with a group of supportive adults, family, and staff around them. Like, it was just a really awesome moment. So we need to continue to recognize Chris Snyder as work principal at Danville to really spearhead that and organize all the logistics with the admin team. Yeah, 150 kids, more than 60 staff were there in some capacity. Staff from every level of our district, from TLC all the way up through the high school, working to kind of welcome future middle school kids to the community. So it's going to happen again next year. Third thing, looking backwards, we never got to the moment where we informed you folks that we were doing a penguin plunge this year. I don't know if we did that or not, but we did have a Timberlane team. We had 15 staff across the district plunge in the Atlantic Ocean on Super Bowl Sunday. If you remember what happened the night before, there was a massive snowstorm. It was gorgeous out there on the beach. It was covered in snow. It was a very different environment than what's been out there in the past. And we as a group of Timberlane raised $10,000 for Special Olympics.
Nice.
So really proud of that, and we're going to do that again next year as well. Something that's current, you heard Sandy kind of debrief and map out what's going to be happening with the PD sessions on Tuesday. I wanted to inform the board that I will be leading a PD session that day along with 4 administrators from every level of our district. And we're going to be continuing the conversation with staff around discriminatory experiences of our students and among students. Staff are going to get to hear almost floating outside their classrooms from the spaces that they work with and hear what happens across our district at every level. So admin is going to report out how they get those reports of discriminatory actions or speech, the process they move through to investigate, and then the determinations they're making. So we can then leave a full group facilitated conversation about what can I and we do as individuals in a community, as a school district, to continue to make this recognizable to the staff, but also begin to develop really methodical ways that we are processing through these experiences with our kids and families. So I'm really looking forward to that 2-hour session. I think we are maxed out.
You are.
Awesome. That's fantastic. 3 things looking forward for you. The first is phase 3 of the lease. I wanted to remind the board that you had deferred entering into any signed contract with EEI for phase 3 until after the vote. So I will be bringing that back here as an agenda item because I will need some direction from the board about whether we're going to execute that and move forward or whether we're going to be making different determinations. It has a large interplay because, as you know, and as we've talked about here, the planning for that work and the ordering of the materials and mapping it out around and between student times at schools is complex. So the sooner that we can get that kind of decision, the better we're going to be if we're moving in that direction. So that's going to come before you again soon. Also, I've talked with both the chair and vice chair. We're going to be bringing the budget to actual reports each second meeting of the board for each month. These are the same reports that are posted publicly on the district website and available to all of you as board members. But we are going to carve some time once a month at these meetings to run through those numbers and to engage the board about questions, discussion, and clarification of those. I think that's going to be a healthy practice of the school district moving forward. And lastly, looking ahead, this is a thing to celebrate about why it's just awesome to be here in Timberlane. We brought the NECC program to the State Board of Education earlier in the year. We had a really good experience there with our families talking about the benefits of those programs. And you've met some of those families here and it's how it's life-changing for them and their kids. We also have an invitation from the Deputy Commissioner of Education to bring that presentation to the Council for Thriving Children, again here in March 19th. So Kim Rivers and most likely Kelly Brooks, the Director of Special Education, will be visiting there, bringing families and maybe students with them, and again, bringing Timberlane to a statewide spotlight in terms of what we're doing for students and families here as a model for other districts to replicate. I want to remind the board that is a contracted service that we do here in our district, and we have a program at TLC, and we also have a program for at Atkinson. And we're going to be looking, obviously, in the future for programs at the middle school. And lastly, this is number 8, if you care, the Cubs of Chicago begin their baseball season earlier than most. They will be playing in Japan against the Los Angeles Dodgers on March 18th. That's like 2 weeks before the traditional opening day. Game time, American Eastern Standard Time, is 6 a.m.
What day do you leave?
I will be tuning in. Go Cubs, play ball.
All right, thank you for that. Anything new with the personnel report? I see we got our vacancies and everything, but we don't have anything else.
Nothing substantial in terms of changes, no.
All right, committee reports. I'll start with Jack.
Nothing for committees.
Don?
We did look at, in policy today, 4 new things for a first, second read. You nice job of that today. Nick. We ran through it pretty efficiently today. It was good. Yeah, Jack wasn't there. Because he probably missed that. But we talked about wellness, school safety, talked about threats to the building. We talked about school closing processes and things that we feel pretty confident moving forward very soon to take the board for.
Yeah, I also got to attend policy today. Always good to go to that committee. It's a very well ran committee. We have a lot of good committees, but I always enjoy being on that one as well. Safety committee met earlier this week. Some good stuff that came from that. Other than that, I have nothing. Mark?
You covered safety as much as I'd be willing to, so there we go.
Shauna? Nothing. Kim?
Curriculum assessment, we just had this past Tuesday. Sandy covered most of what we talked about. But I just wanted to make the point that Sandy was made, but just kind of, never looking in on herself and all the hard work that she does. The education bill that passed is an enormous amount of work, like she said, but it's Sandy and it's Mark and Lucy and Jen Pahopek, and there's a group of people that have to look at that have to take every single word in every single document, and they have to compare it to what we already do. They have to say, okay, wait, this has to go to policy. Oh, wait, this has to go to the classrooms. Now those people have to go to the teachers and say, well, I know we just revised this, because I know I come here and tell you guys like the revisions that they make, and we have to approve a lot of the revisions. But now we have to go do it again. Yeah. And being on that curriculum and assessment committee, it's just been so eye-opening about the work that you don't ever see that gets done. And so I just wanted to say that it's appreciated.
Great.
CIP meets April 14th and strategic planning meets March 20th.
Alyssa?
I actually just have a question for policy committee. Is there in the works or coming down the pike at all a cell phone policy that you guys are gonna be working on? Has that been spoken
District
about?
does not
or-
have a current cell phone policy.
I'm just curious.
Cell
That's the answer. Not currently.
Okay, so that we don't see
Jack
that
and
on the
Dawn.
horizon as of yet.
Not yet.
Not right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Before we get into other business, I just want to recognize Ms. McCormick for this is your last board meeting, and just want to thank you for everything that you've done. I've really enjoyed working with you these last 3 years, and you've been a great asset to this board, and we're really going to miss you.
Thank you.
Don't
be a stranger.
Yeah.
Don't be a stranger.
It has been an honor and a privilege working with you this way, and what a lot of people don't realize is all the work and the conversations, the thoughtfulness behind the scenes with you speaking with people, trying to form opinions, trying to add information. So that's invisible to everybody except for those who you talk to. So it's been a great pleasure. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, guys.
And Mark, I know you have I feel like you're going to be back, but in the event that you're not, it's been a pleasure working with you as well.
Yeah. off television, to be honest.
All right, any other business at this time? I'm
If I
gonna
could.
let Mark go first and then Jack can go.
Question for you, sorry, and if you can't answer it, that is fine. There've been, obviously, we're getting close toward election season. A lot of people are talking about the finances of the district. One of the questions that comes up a lot is the administrative or perceived administrative load that we have here in the district. And I know a while ago, I had brought something up. I didn't know whether you have had the time or have the information offhand. Would you be able to speak to the administrative load we have here? I know it's lower now than it has been in the past, but how do we stack up against other districts with similar populations, if that is, something that you have at your fingertips? And the second part of that is I was asked by a couple of my constituents just to ask about the vice principals at our middle school and why that is a unique situation. Throwing a lot at you, sorry, man.
That's okay. Let me get to that second part first because I don't know what's unique about the situation.
Having three of them?
Having three of them. Okay, let's look at some of the data from other school districts. So right now where we sit as a district for Timberlane, we employ 36 administrators. This includes folks that are in the administrative association, the union, and it includes non-affiliated administrators, so building and district administrators. The ratio, and we talked about the minimum standards a little bit already this evening, the ratio for administrators to students in a school building in the minimum standards is 1 administrator for every 500 students. I've assumed, just anecdotally, I've assumed an administrative position here in New Hampshire since 2005. I have yet to encounter a school district that, in all my experiences, that operates on the minimum expectations of administrators with that ratio. There's very specific reasons why. I think they're also connected to the reasons why school districts and communities make decisions not to operate off other minimum standards, like class size of 30, or the minimum standard that doesn't require athletics, or music or theater programming, or extracurricular opportunities, or the robotics club you saw here again tonight. All that is not in the minimum standards. Communities make decisions to do more because they have a value set that they want to be able to give kids. So could Timberlane get to a place where we had 1 administrator for every 500 kids? Yes, we could. I think it would be destructive. I think it would be catastrophic in terms of any of the educational supports and planning and programming we think or want to think about doing here across the district. Where we stand up with some other schools. I have reached out to the South Central folks. I have heard back specifically from Hampstead, Sanborn, Londonderry, Pelham, and Salem. So let me run through our numbers first, and I'll run through those school numbers. Elementary schools for us, we currently have 287 students at Danville. We have 2 administrators there. At Pollard, we have 437 students. We have 2 administrators there. Sandown North, we have 325 students. We have 2 administrators there. At TLC, we have 190 very young students. We have 1 administrator there. Atkinson Academy, 365 students, 2 administrators there. At the middle school, we have 733 students as of today. We have 4 administrators plus a special education administrator. And I'm going to continue to break those out over time because school districts report those positions differently. At the high school, 936 students, 4 administrators plus a special education administrator. You met one of the administrators here tonight who also runs the evening division and alternative pathways program. Looking at Hampstead, their elementary school of 450 students is 2.5 administrators. Their middle school of 350 students has 2.5 administrators. If you extrapolated that data to our schools, they would fit in and match and actually be a little on the higher side. Over at Sanborn, they've got a little bit of a different model. They have a pre-K to 2 school, 280 kids, 3 administrators, exceeds our model. They have a school for 3 to 5, 280 students, 3 administrators, exceeds our model. The high school has 750 students, 7 administrators, would be on pace to be equivalent or exceed our model by a bit. Londonderry A little bit more with us in terms of having separate elementary school buildings. Their elementaries range from 450 to 520 students. 3 administrators at each of those buildings, exceeds our model. Middle school, 950 students, 6 administrators. Percent ratio wise is right on par with our middle school model. High school, 1,220 students, 10 administrators. That is exactly aligned to our model. Looking at Pelham, elementary school there, much larger than ours, 750 students, 4 administrators there. That would be a similar profile to here at Pollard. It's doubling its size, and having 4, they're on par with our model. Middle school, only 349 students in Pelham, 3 administrators there, on par with our model. High school, 512 students, 5 administrators, exactly on par with the model here in Timberlane. Salem, our very much neighboring community, is a little bit starting at the high school, 10 administrators, 1,115 students, right on par with our model. Woodbury is the middle school there, 774 students, 3 administrators there, but they do not report out any special education support. So my feeling is there is some lack there, and I want to clarify if they have an administrator in that position. Also at the elementary level, they've got 5 elementary schools ranging from 267 at the lowest to 381 at the highest. There's only a principal in those buildings, but again, I'm going to suspect that there's a special education administrator also in those buildings. I want to follow up there. My belief is I would find 2 administrators in each of those buildings as well.
Okay, so you had time to look into it then.
I had some time to look into it.
Let's follow up on that a little bit, that topic, not only are schools have different configurations, but they have different responsibilities that they have people fill differently. You might have teachers do a lot of duties, cover lunches, that you might have coordinators to do curriculum work, or you might have department heads. There's so many designs, and we've had quite a few. We've had more administrators. We've had department heads, who were administrators. We've had some that were paid salaries as administrators. We had some that were getting stipends. We've had all types of things trying to get it to a point that it was working well. Right now, we're kind of lean on a lot of those building-based supports. So our assistant principals at the high school level are working with departments, much more than they have over the previous years. Well, since we're into this model, and we have Mark and we have Jen Paholpick, we have Sandy overseeing all of that for the whole district. But I think that if you go school to school to school, they'll have a different justification for the reason that they're doing what they do. They're trying to meet the needs of their community, their budget, their everything, and I feel like, we've got so many things going here that we've become very proud of. Look at this was a great meeting tonight. Some of the things that were showcased demonstrate the great work that's going on. You have somebody who's working with kids on alternative paths, to get through high school, doing fabulous things. A lot of schools don't even address any of that. We have 160 something kids over the last 3 years that have been involved in that program. We had like 40 or so that are doing it right now, more coming in next year. We don't want to go to such a minimum that we can't afford those types of opportunities. The things going on for those young kids that were here tonight demonstrate a great beginning, but you don't want to chop them off at the knees later on and not have continuing challenges and opportunities that take personnel, take expertise. They take, talented people with a vision. And we've tried really hard as a board, I think, to try to build a base for success long term. We're looking at our buildings, we're trying to, get some consistency in the way we fund the repair, the things we want to build, that we want to keep, so that our kids have opportunities. All kids have opportunities. Look at co-curriculars. At the high school, over 80% of our kids are involved in co-curricular activities. Those aren't mandatory. You don't have to offer those things. I can't imagine not offering those things. That's why those kids want to come to school. It's why they're proud of going to Timberlane. It's why people want to work here. we start to go too minimum, take away music, or we take away some music, or we take away, co-curricular activities like honor societies, or, Model UN, or groups that travel, people that are doing things that feed their potential futures, and we've had great success with kids going to other levels of education beyond high school, whether it's an apprenticeship, whether it's going into college, whether it's going off to join a service, and we can kind of point to experiences that we've provided for them that we don't have to provide that build that. We've lost some things. We couldn't hire somebody because we lost an engineering program. We're going to have struggles, and we're going to have struggles because things get very expensive, and we're going to have to be very careful that even when we have to sacrifice something, we tried really hard not to. And I'm really worried coming up into next week and what we'll be facing as a challenge moving forward should the vote be yes on 2. And I think that, I applaud this board for having put kids first, for having, returned millions of dollars to the taxpayers, based on things that we might have wanted to use it otherwise, but we looked around and we got plenty of feedback to say that the towns needed that support. I had no idea that we would end up in a situation where I'm worried like I am about this upcoming vote. We had an increased budget that we offered, but we did that with the kids in mind, with our staff in mind, with the community in mind. Everything feeds together. If we're good for every constituent, it's going to cost us some money. But we'll provide a future for those people, and we'll make the values of our homes go up. The quality of our education become more profoundly good, and something that we can be very proud of. So I just didn't want to lose sight of all that.
I couldn't agree with you more, Don. I wish we could pipe that into every single house. I really do. No.
Jack.
Yeah, before I get into the chatter, Kim, you probably have the biggest heart of any member of any board I've ever sat with. Your compassion and caring for the kids, it has been very impressive. You're not a loud voice, which is also admirable. But you do your work and you do it all from the heart. So thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
On another note, back to the chatter, as much as there's a million things I'd like to address tonight, I will only address one of them. There was some discussion about teachers taking time out of their classes for training, for things, for growth. And I was wondering if the superintendent could just speak to that briefly, and that teacher being replaced with a sub. And I was just sitting there saying, okay, we have a shortage of subs. We don't have all these subs on standby for what was. Can you explain to us how that is managed?
I'd be happy to. I don't have any specifics, Jack, in terms of what you're referring to. I'll talk globally about teacher professional development.
I understand.
Right, so there will of course be opportunities through the year that teachers will want to go as part of their professional development plan to build hours or experiences toward recertification and continue to hone their craft. They certainly have the opportunity to be either asking to do that during the calendar work year, or we as an administrative team may direct them to go to certain trainings. Some of those trainings will be in-house here in our district. Some of them will be off in the state someplace. But when that's happening, yes, we will have an obligation to kind of fill that role with substitute teacher. Now, all of that is under the guise that the value of this administrative team is contact time with the classroom teacher and the student. So that is the balance for us as we're doing that. But we also need to build opportunities for our staff to learn and grow. There are other opportunities that we can do that are not during the student instructional day. We have a very good calendar compared to a lot of districts that provides time for teachers where kids are not with us so we can do some of that work. We would want more of that time if we could actually get our hands on that stuff. But yeah, indiscriminately through the year, there's going to be individual teachers that are working through their own individual growth plans and evaluation plans that will seek out professional development. All of it happens with the approval of their administrator.
Thank you.
Any other delegates or individuals? Before we go into non-public, just a reminder, everybody, that Tuesday is the vote. Please get out, please vote.
Make a motion to go into non-public under 91-A:3 subparagraph C.
Motion by Shauna, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim.
Yay, Kim.
Very last second.
Last second.
Second roll call vote.
Jeff?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. We'll just be back to come out and seal the minutes. Have a good evening.
That was unbelievable. You will